Like father,
like son.
just two regular guys that love to distro hop.
Not too technical or even bleeding edge.
But functional and necessary for getting things done.
In Linux and open source.
Join us as we learn together on the Father
and Son podcast.
All right, well, welcome to Season 1, Episode number 8. We're going to be talking about internet safety today, internet security, network safety, network security, however you want to name it. But this is Like Father, Like Son Linux Review Podcast, and I'm Like Father.
And I'm like Son.
All right. Do we have any corrections or updates from our last episode, Jamie?
I do want to say that I did, but unfortunately I did not write it down.
Right.
I did not recall it. I will personally make sure to put that into the next episode we go into.
Gotta remember to keep up with our notes while we're doing this stuff.
Yes.
But I do have one. I said last time, when you're using things like password programs, password type things, kind of like Bitwarden or Proton. There's some other ones that are actually on Linux that remember to delete
Your clipboard history.
your clipboard, which what I meant to do is delete your clipboard history. Now, sometimes you can actually set it where it's not recording the history at all.
Right.
And that's kind of where I would probably keep it. But that way, your passwords and usernames and stuff will not be on the clipboard because people could use that. Which kind of brings up a little bit of what we're going to be talking today. But first of all, I want you to tell me, what have you been doing this week in Linux, open source, or general IT?
So, general IT, actually, is what I've been working on. I took apart a old Samsung laptop. One of my coworkers approached me. He said he had a friend who just needed a laptop just to be able to do word processing, maybe light internet browsing. And I was like, I've got a few spares just lying around. Take your pick out of them. So you pick this one. And I was like, all right, well, let me go ahead and get it all refurbished. So I took that thing fully apart to get all the way down to the thermal paste because it's a 20-year-old laptop. I guarantee you that thermal paste has not been touched.
It's going to be a little bit crumbly.
Oh, it was. It was pretty bad. So I got it all hooked up. It took me a lot longer than I should have because I forgot sometimes screws are under the keyboard.
Right.
On a laptop. So it took me forever to go. I was like, oh yeah, let me go lift up that keyboard, and then finally it's like, hey, look, there's the screws that I'm missing. All right, I'm gonna do them and then take it apart. And then so I got the fun job of putting it all back together a little bit later with new thermal paste. What I was impressed about, that's been sitting in my garage for at least 2 years, and the dust quantity was very minimal. I was impressed.
Right. So that's good.
Yeah, that was awesome.
But keep in mind, it hasn't been running for a while, so...
Yeah, I also ran into...
Could have been a flood that washed everything out and then dried off, and...
I doubt that. Oh, but I ran into... I thought I had a charge cord for it. I do not.
You don't have a charge cord for it?
I don't. And I don't have... and the batteries are out of juice.
So you got to jump on Amazon or eBay to find
Yep.
The charge cord cable for it, probably even the battery for it.
And then plug it in and go like this.
True, yeah. And, it may or not work, but it's a fun project anyway.
Yeah, either way it went. And I'm right this moment, I'm only out like $10 for thermal paste.
Right.
So wasn't terrible. I could have gone and splurged for the $30 one, but I was like, this is an old laptop. I don't think we need that much.
Yeah,
investment.
I guess if you have a new computer with all the higher temperatures and stuff like that, that'd be fine. And you want the top of the line if you're going to. But hopefully your new computer would already have that, unless you're building it yourself, which means you
got to do everything.
Yeah, you got to have that thermal paste. That's the only way you're going to get it connected from the CPU over to whatever the
heat sink.
The heat sink is in this case.
Funny story. I didn't know this for a while, but the heat sink is usually copper between the two.
Sometimes, yes.
So because it's a good heat conductor.
Correct.
And I never put the two together until, later on in life. It's like, oh, that's where the physics and it comes into play.
I on my computer, I have the weirdest one to start with. It has that little heat sink on it, but then it fans out into this big old bunch of light I don't know, it looks like a butterfly, if you will.
Yeah.
And then it has a fan on top of that that blows through it. But I haven't had any temperature problems, so that's, I guess it works the way it's supposed to.
Absolutely. I would love at some point to get a water cooled, but I'm
scared
always
about that.
Yeah, see, that's exactly what I had that feeling. It's like I am going to be the guy with the luck that has the little leak in the middle.
Yeah, I have some, plumbing worries about that, Yeah.
Didn't you have a coworker of yours that put liquid nitrogen in a little cup on top of his CPU?
I don't think
To
I ever
dissipate
had
it?
that, but we did have liquid nitrogen to play with and stuff. But no, I don't think I'd want to do that.
No, I don't either, but because that just was asking for some trouble there too.
Yeah. Well, I have a couple of issues recently on it. One, speaking of my desktop, my 4 terabyte, hard drive died.
No.
And, it gave me warning on it. I got some of my stuff across, but, so it was overheating, I guess. And, it did not, it told me it was not feeling very good. It's an ill 4 terabyte hard drive. And, of course, it's the RPM one. And the RPM one is, it died. It was a used one anyway,
RPM one? I'm sorry. What do you mean by that?
The RPM one.
Oh, just the HDD.
Like, 7,200 RPM.
Okay.
So it wasn't a solid state drive.
Okay, I'm with you now. When you said hard drive, that's what I was already thinking was the optical one.
Yeah. So I had to get another one and try to copy across. I mean, it was really hard because I was just trying to copy a few files across at a time, and it would take hours.
Right.
Because it's not working, but I'd take anything that I could, any little bit,
Yeah.
just give me one more file. And I may have all these files anyway. I think I was using it more to hold the stuff on my computer, and I probably have it on some of my other hard drives. I just was trying to put it all in one place. But so I had to get a new 4 terabyte hard drive and install it and move my files across to that. So that's one. And yesterday I had another.
Drive go out on you?
No, this was at work, and it was working fine in the morning, but then all of a sudden, one of my coworkers says, I can't get over to the office drive, which is the server. And so I was like, wow, sure enough. And I thought for sure, since it was all the lightning we had the night before and everything like that, that my server just hasn't started, because I've been out on the internet and everything already that morning. But I went over in there and it was still on. So it's like, well, what's going on? So I restarted everything, turned it off, waited, the 3 to 5 minutes or whatever, and then plugged everything back up. And then nothing worked. And
was the flash drive?
No. What I did after that, I went ahead and looked at the IP config, and since I was on a Windows machine there in my office, and that's what I had to use as far as my desktop. And then my laptop has Linux on it. But it was, it didn't give me a gateway address.
Oh.
And I'm like, okay, that's usually a router issue.
Right.
And I didn't know for sure what was going on the router stuff, but what I did is I grabbed my laptop then, which was Linux, and I had to go into there and start working through it. So, I got my... basically my modem router thing, and that was working fine. So the phones were working fine. Everything was working fine now. And then I just keep moving to the next step and the next step. Well, it turned out it was our wireless broadcaster, if you will, or wireless access point, which was also a router.
Yeah.
And that's where the number was coming from in the long run. It was the problem. It wasn't working.
Oh.
So that went out. But it just so happened, I switched over to another internet service provider, and on their system that came in, they actually had the wireless access point as well as the router as well as the modem, all in one unit, because we don't really necessarily have a real business type system there. We have like a 300 megabits up and 300 megabits down type system.
That's still pretty good.
And no, it works. We haven't had a problem with it at all. But so I had to take that out of the loop, if you will, and then connect everything back up, and everything worked fine. Except, of course, it's going to change your IP addresses now.
You can actually fix that by going into
Make it a static IP. Yeah. And I could have done that, but I was amiss with it at that point.
For your server, at the very least, that's probably a very good idea.
The server, once you restart it, it's going to have the new IP address. And if it depends, I guess, how you do your mapping
Yeah,
to it.
exactly.
And most of the mapping to it was just by the name and not by the IP address.
That's a good idea.
You know, and it all worked out fine. You know, praise the Lord. Of course, you know, that's that part of your day messed up now is 2 or 3 hours just because, you know, it's like, no, I can't be this, it can't be that, and you're trying to troubleshoot it, and that's good. I mean, and I was glad that we didn't have to spend any money extra to get it done. Got everything back together. You know, basically, got everything working the same way it was before, just with one less component. So in the long run, it worked out better for us anyhow, I guess. So far, so good. It's working. Like I said, just the change of IP address, which usually messes up possibly getting to your server, depending on how you set that up.
Right.
And possibly printers,
If you
depending on how they're set up. Because I know, you know, you can set it up with the
Server
port
name.
being the Microsoft port, or you can set it up being the IP address,
or you can set it up with the server name.
you know.
The server name is going to be the most dynamic of them because it doesn't matter what the IP address is at
It's
that
going to
point.
go to the server name. But
Correct.
yeah, so those are the kind of the areas you'll start messing with. And I know that's probably a little bit more advanced than what we usually want to do, but that's just where my day was yesterday. So one of those things where you switch your one hat and put on your other hat and just move on. Anyway, hey, I just got a pop-up here that says if I click here that there's a virus on my computer and they'll help me fix my virus and my computer will run faster. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that.
Don't do that.
Why not? I want my computer to be faster.
Yeah, I want your computer to be faster, but
I mean,
that's
I think it's been lagging just a little bit lately.
that's a red light. That is such a red light. Don't click that.
Well, if that's being said, that's what we're talking about today is we're going to be talking about how to be safe in an online world. You know, your internets, your networks, your modems, and all the stuff that you're using nowadays. You're usually connected almost everywhere you are in the world. But with that said, your safety is compromised almost anywhere you are in the world today. So that's what we want to talk about today. So just like we were talking about right just then, you know, you can have a pop-up that comes up in your on your computer that says, hey, we're Microsoft, or we're Google, or we're Norton, or we're McAfee, or put whatever brand name you want to put
Right.
there, and we're here to help you. And in all my experience, and I'm not saying I have a ton of experience, but I have never had Microsoft or Google or Norton or any of those guys call me up and say, I'm trying to help you, or give me a note to try to help me. In fact, usually you got to make a phone call, which leads to another phone call, which gets transferred from another phone call. And probably all the people have a different accent than that you find in your country. But it's you know, they're not going to do it that way. Let's just put it that way. So
Right.
even if you have emails or pop-ups or anything that comes up to say they're trying to help you with this, you know, they're not. This is a scam. This is a way for them to get information. They could be phishing for it,
Yep.
or they're going to get access to your computer, or, you know, some way or another they're trying to get information from you. And so let's go ahead and start in this today that we're going to be talking about how to be safe in an online world.
Yeah. So, as you all are all aware, I mean, especially with this day and age, as we're talking about, you know, everything's connected pretty much, right? So you can go to McDonald's, you can go to your
Coffee shop.
you go to Walmart even, and they
Probably
have
in your grocery store, you know.
yeah, they have right on the front doors usually free Wi-Fi.
Free Wi-Fi.
Or public Wi-Fi, and this is fantastic. Don't get me wrong; I think it's a great thing, but you do need to be aware. Public Wi-Fi's or free Wi-Fi's are usually not that secure. It's not to say that they don't have their own firewalls, but they don't have firewalls from everybody else in that vicinity accessing that from you. Okay, so it's not to say that they can't be used. Okay,
Correct.
But we do want to say, please be wary or be aware. Okay, here's a few ideas and a few tips to keep you a little bit safer while you're using these public Wi-Fi's. Try to limit your time on them. Okay,
Correct.
The shorter the better. I mean, if you need to do a lot of research, you're at the coffee shop and you need to do that, that's fine. Okay, in that case, limit what you're accessing.
Correct.
Don't access your bank account on a
No.
public Wi-Fi. Don't access anything that requires you to put your social security number, like maybe if you're accessing your Medicare or if you're accessing your insurance company or something like that.
Or anything that you may put your credit card on or something like that too, if you're going to purchase something online.
Yeah.
I mean, I know you have secure sites and you want to make sure you're at a secure site, obviously, but you probably want to go ahead and use maybe your phone or something like that, but your phone connected to the tower directly,
right?
Not
as opposed
to Wi-Fi. Yeah.
Right. So limit what you're, accessing. Another one is be aware of what you're accessing. Okay. Every public Wi-Fi that I have ever connected to requires a quote unquote sign in. They bring up a term of service for you to read through and agree to before you can access this.
Right.
This usually is an indication of what they are accessing from you, what they're able to do with that information. I'm not saying that many of them are allowed to go and send your internet history to other companies, but believe it or not, that is something you may agree to on one of these networks. I'm not saying that that's the norm. That may not be the norm. But if you don't read your terms of service, you don't know what you're agreeing to.
And make sure it's actually their access point. Because a lot of them do say guest, and I get that, but there are people that can actually put a portable access point there so they can access the information. You connect to it and you do whatever. And some of them may even have a pop-up screen in the web for the terms of, service. But make sure you have the right one. Usually if they have it posted like you were talking about, then it's going to be called that name or so forth. But yeah, there are people that are now using portable access points to have you connect to that access point, and they're connected to it as well to get information from you.
So I know this. Some of this content may be just a little bit above. It may also be a bit scary. We're not trying to scare you.
No.
And I use public Wi-Fis. I use them for any number of things. I don't go to McDonald's to access my bank account.
No, but I mean, I had to do a lot of school work. Back when we were traveling and stuff. I had a couple of jobs that I was working on, and I had to use it when I traveled to one of the other company sites. I had to use, and that's the only way I keep going with my degree. But I wasn't putting out any information out there unless they wanted to study more about theology or something. I guess that'd be okay. There might be certain parts of the Bible you need to read if you're trying to steal information from people, but
so he says theology. He did go through that. He also went through IT at the University of Phoenix for a while too. Yeah. And he did a lot of that as well through hotels.
I do have the two degrees, but the thing about the MIS degree, no matter where you get it from, it changes so quickly. Yeah. And so something you might have done 10 years ago won't really necessarily hang today. And
some of it's going to.
Some of it is. But with IT or theology or any of the things you study of, you got to keep using it or you lose it. So anyway, I did have to use the internet quite a bit. Truck stops. Yeah. I had to turn in homework on truck stops. And
I remember us going to Sergeant Stripes Drive-In.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that, I can't remember, but I think they had a public Wi-Fi that you were connecting there.
And I was finishing stuff up while you guys were watching the movie, and I got done by the time to watch the second feature. And so I am using public Wi-Fi. I mean, I do. But there's other safe ways you can do it. But again, we're not doing any of the secure stuff across the public Wi-Fi. Right.
So let's talk about, we talked about public, okay?
Yeah. What about at home? You're perfectly safe, right?
No. Unfortunately, even at your home, you're not perfectly safe. It's not to say it's not safer, because it is. Your ISP is going to help protect your information.
Correct.
Your router actually will also try to help you protect it to some degree.
Yeah, the only ports that are going to be open are the ones that you actually
physically open yourself.
Physically make open yourself.
Aside from, I think they have to have a port open for your actual ISP, but that's
right.
That's knowledge for everybody, I think. Anyway, then you have even your computers have a layer of security on them too. This is called a firewall.
Use your firewall.
If you don't know what that is, go check it out. Most of them, including Linux, have a firewall already built in, and if it's not, Linux is very quick. Sudo apt-get if you're on Debian. Apt-get install UFW and GUFW, so you have a graphics interface for it.
We'll put that down in the notes.
But it's simple. You go in there, you enter your password, you click the bar over, and it sets up a firewall that helps prevent other people accessing on the outside,
Correct.
gaining access to your personal device.
And sometimes, when you're doing that access to your firewall, there's sometimes that you may have to, allow things to go through the firewall if you're gaming and connecting to
Right.
multi groups together. So there are certain things but you'll learn those as you go along.
Absolutely. And then even your router might have a firewall built into it. So if it has a setting on there for a built-in firewall, go ahead and add that. That adds an extra layer of protection. So you'll be protected from the router base, and then you'll be protected on your personal device as well. So that just makes it...
Microsoft has security areas for, Windows security. You have stuff on Linux for that. I want to say you have stuff on Macs. And of course, you can add the extra stuff, which we're going to talk about here soon too, is the antivirus. And you can add antivirus too. And some of those antivirus programs have a firewall and malware and some of the other protections that you're doing. So,
and some of those are usually a little more advanced firewalls too.
Correct.
The ones that are usually provided by your operating system are usually very basic.
Correct.
Whereas somebody who studies all malware and all types of viruses and port accessibility and whatnot are probably going to build a slightly more robust
They have
firewall.
a bigger database to work through.
That's true.
And so when people are getting hit by these different people they're trying to hack into or mess up internet or computers or anything like that and put out viruses or malware, that they get reported to these different groups. McAfee, what's that one? Kaspersky and stuff. And so they have a lot of people to work with to try to figure out ways to shut that out.
Right.
And so that's the nice thing about it is they do. I mean, they're specializing.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about a few tips to keep yourself safe while at home.
Yeah.
Avoiding insecure websites. Okay, I'm going to tell you, there are insecure websites out there. It's unavoidable. There are just some out there. Many of your browsers are going to pretty much pop up beforehand, letting you know, hey, your internet traffic is not hidden.
Some of the browsers will only connect to it.
Yeah.
If it's an HTTP compared to an HTTPS.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's great. So if you see that, it's probably go ahead and there's a button that says back to safety usually.
Correct.
Go ahead and click on back to safety. Go view that page.
Unless you know what you're doing. I mean, obviously, if you know what you're doing, you're not going to be listening to our Linux because it's too basic. But
so, actually saying that, okay, I have at work, I have a few servers that I have to connect to.
Correct.
They're usually IP address and they're HTTP only.
Correct.
But the reason that is because it's internal. This is not accessible outside of my work's domain at all. So what that means is if I am at home and which I do work from home, I have to use a VPN, which we'll talk about some other time, a little bit later. Anyway, what it goes about saying is that if you're doing something like Nextcloud at your own home, you're not accessing it outside of your personal home network, there's no need to worry about trying to get it HTTPS. And if you access your Nextcloud, it's probably going to be on your browser flag saying, hey, this isn't secure. You can go ahead and add a security exception to that one. If
right.
And
you can make a secure certificate
right
on it. I mean, I went ahead and went through the whole 9 yards and did it on ours, just because I accessed it from outside. I just got tired of having to mess with it. So I just went ahead and did that, which, does cost money.
But it does make it more secure.
It does make it more secure. So to do the certification, they do have to jump through some hurdles to get there. And that means it's actually usually a legitimate website. So.
Right. Now, occasionally, sometimes websites forget, or the website maintainer forgets to renew their certificate, which occasionally happens, and it's usually resolved very quickly.
Right.
If they're very good about it. I have run into this with some of the operating systems that we run. There's been I think Vanilla OS had their website down related to a security certificate because they just didn't renew it or didn't renew it on time, or
So if you've been watching the video of your sermons there at your church and all of a sudden the next time you went up, it says, ooh, this is an insecure site. It probably still is an okay site. It was just because they haven't renewed it.
Right. And so that occasionally happens.
It lapsed.
Usually what you do is you let one of the maintainers know, and they
Yeah.
go and get that fixed pretty quickly.
Yeah.
All right. So HTTPS is a good thing. This is what's in front of your URL or your website. It stands for Hypertext Protocol. If I remember correctly, S stands for secure.
Right.
And what that simply means is that the information is being transferred from your device to wherever you're accessing and back is encrypted or hidden from other people being able to look at it.
So what usually happens is you put in your website that you're going to, if you frequent a website, or whatever,
Google.com.
Google.com, YouTube.com. So you probably just type in that.
Right.
What the browser goes ahead and does, it puts the HTTPS:// in front of that. You might not even see it depending on how your browser works it.
Right.
But that's actually the complete address.
Correct. All right. So
Of course, that's before the www dot.
there is no such thing as www dot anymore. I mean, you could add that in and it's not going to hurt anything, but you don't see that in your website addresses anymore. It's all the World Wide Web. So, Dad's showing his age. Just saying. Unfortunately, I remember those
Back when we
days.
did things right. Yeah, that's right. No, but that stuff is now hidden, if you will, but that's really what's going on. So if you ever do a right click on it to copy that link, it's going to give you the whole complete information.
So let's talk about the next thing. Ads.
Don't click on ads.
I can't stress that enough, okay? Ads are a great way of getting information to you from other sources you may not be aware of, or maybe something that you enjoy. I search Linux things frequently through Google. Google has a tendency to send that kind of information out to advertisers so it can make money and keep it maintained. And those advertisers will then send stuff my way that's going to be something that I like to do or like to look at. Don't click on the ad. You can still search these things up. And if
it's Billy Bob's Linux site, then type in Billy Bob's Linux site, either do a search or go ahead and type in Billy Bob's Linux site.com or .org or whatever it is.
Don't actually click on the ad. It's not to say that some of those ads aren't secure, because some of them might be legitimate. However, it's safer to avoid that.
Right.
100%. Okay, because some of
that moves over even beyond the browser. That moves over into your email too.
Yes.
Don't do that in your email. I mean, if it's someone you're working with and you know that person personally and all that stuff, that's different. But if you're getting email that has a link to go here, hey, this is your bank, and you're overdrawn and press on this link, probably not. That's not the way the bank works. But almost anything, if it's an email you don't know where it's coming from or who it is, that person, then don't click on it. It's always best to go ahead and type in if you know your bank's address.
So I have a little story on that, actually. Nowadays, unfortunately, there is what something's called masking.
Oh.
They can make email addresses that are coming from a completely different domain look like a recognized email to you.
And you get those every single day.
You do. An easy way to differentiate that, if you actually expand out where it's coming from, you won't just see the name anymore. You'll actually see the address that it's coming from. And that's usually a good indication. Okay, this ABZ1235678 at Yahoo probably is not my friend.
Right. And they probably had part of the name in there. So like, we're not picking on Yahoo or anything like that, but if you went yahoo.com, okay, usually it'll have something else besides yahoo.com. It might have yahoo.3689.com or, but the domain name is going to be that whatever.com. If it doesn't say, in this case, yahoo.com, then it's not a Yahoo. It's not Yahoo contacting you or using that link. But a lot of those people that are doing that, they do put part of that name in there
to try to
you got to see if it's the true name,
right?
So
going back to ads, okay, let's talk about why I say don't click on any ads, okay? Because some ads are clickbait. What that means is that they are built there to look enticing in some way, shape, or form to you, for you to click on, and then you are automatically downloading cookies and cache files
to your computer,
which may include malware, such as You got adware, you've got spyware, where they can actually see what you're doing. That's the scary one.
Yeah. May have some tracking stuff in there.
Yeah, tracking.
Sometimes that's legitimate for data.
Yes.
But sometimes it's not.
Right. So tracking, not necessarily a terrible thing. You're going to have trackers no matter.
It does slow down your browser.
Yeah. So part of what we talked about last mid-episode was to clear your cookies and cache. Do this once in a while. It's going to maintain a little bit better. It's going to help you out. Yeah. All right. So just these clickbaits can lead you to a compromised website. And again, anything you want to find, you can go ahead and search manually. You do not necessarily need to click on the advertisement itself. Okay. Yeah. All right.
Don't create a ton of accounts.
Please don't.
Please don't. I know people will make like a dummy email, and that might be okay. One dummy email. One alias.
Or, you might even call it, if you've ever heard, I don't want to hurt. Okay. If you've ever watched TV, they call them, I have a burner cell phone, or
right.
A burner identity. This is kind of what they look at. So this alias, if for some reason it gets compromised, or for some reason they no longer need it, or they decide this is become too much, they can just drop it and they don't have to worry about it. Okay.
But the reason you're putting this in is more to do with the terms of service.
Right. So read your terms of service. Okay. These accounts all require a new term of service. If you're not reading your terms of service, you're not knowing what you're agreeing to. There are going to be sometimes, and not always, and in most legitimate websites, it's going to be pretty safe to go ahead and accept them. However, some of those other websites where maybe it's lesser known, maybe it's a gaming website, maybe it's what you thought was a gaming website, or maybe it's a torrent site, make sure you're reading those to make sure you know what you're allowing these companies or these people to have access to. Because if you do get compromised and you've already accepted those terms and agreements, unfortunately, that means in all legality, they have access to that because you allowed them to have access to it. So read your terms of service. Okay. If you need to create a dummy account for some reason, maybe you're just not certain about the terms of service, you want to watch it, create a dummy account or an alias, use it in that case. But again, try not to create a ton of accounts.
In any of these things, don't ever use your personal information. Don't put up personal information in there. Even if you're applying for a job, there's certain personal information that shouldn't be asked yet.
Right.
You're not to that stage yet. They're just trying to see your qualifications. At the point that you're hired is when they're going to need things like Social Security numbers.
For HR and whatnot.
That, but right now, don't put that out there ever.
Right. So don't share your personal information.
Correct.
Okay. This is inclusive, this is including, but not exclusively to your social, to your driver's license, to even your cell phone number. Believe it or not, there are some websites, like for a job, you may need them to be able to call you back. That's fine.
Facebook. Some people put their cell numbers out there, and it's like, why are you doing that?
I have mine set up for an MFA on Facebook, but aside from that, I do not allow people to see that. Facebook is the only person that have access to it.
Supposed to. But of course, they have their own terms of service.
Correct. So again, just don't put out your personal information, okay? Unless you know exactly who you're talking to. And even then, if it's somebody you can talk to face-to-face, do it face-to-face. That way, it's only auditory. You don't have to worry about it going through the interwebs or somebody else being able to gain access to it. It's just that one person. HR, if I could go and talk to HR physically, that's what I'm doing. So, those kinds of things.
Downloading. Don't download anything like from the internet that you didn't address yourself. You didn't put out there yourself. I know that's going to sound a little bit weird, especially when we're talking about stuff on Linux, because we're going to be downloading stuff from Linux to install ourselves, but that's me going out there to get it. That's not me clicking on whatever website. Oh, that sounds cool. Let's download that. Oh, that game. Games are really bad about these, little internet games and stuff. Oh, let's download that. And it's not a good thing. Linux is one of those ones that's kind of interesting because you usually have to initiate the installation of that app.
Right.
as compared to some of the older Windows stuff that would automatically download when you click on it. But downloading stuff you just got to be careful because, it could have the viruses on it or malware and things as well. So just be careful where you're downloading from. Make sure it's a good site. And usually if it's something you initiated, not something that they initiated. Yeah.
Please do not look for free versions of a paid application that isn't offered as an official free trial or free version from their official website.
So with Linux, we have a lot of things we're talking about free, and usually we're talking about free. It's like an open source. It's free for people to use.
Right.
As far as, to apply, use it, use the code, make their own, adjustments to it. But free stuff is probably depends on what we're talking about. But what he's talking about here is usually, I don't know, do you call it illegal stuff in the long run? Because
overall
we're going to go out to this site to find a free version of Office.
Right.
That's illegal already. Okay.
Yeah.
But if you go out there and actually find it, these people are loading it with so much stuff on it to either get access to your computer or throw viruses out there or, just cause chaos. So you already know it's wrong. Be ethical. Don't bring in that type of stuff.
And there are free alternatives, and I'm not talking about a free version of that. I'm not talking about free Microsoft Office. I'm talking alternatives to Office, so something different. LibreOffice. If you need an Office suite that you need for free,
right?
Go look up LibreOffice. Look up Kingsoft Office. Look up Word WPS Office. These are all open source, free alternatives installable on not only Windows, not only Mac, not only Linux, but
and a lot of those are really powerful anyway.
Yeah.
And if you later on, if you're using it and you like it, go ahead and give them money for that. But please, that includes things like cracks or you can go out there and find the license for this, and or keys or key generators or whatever.
Yep.
And you're going to pay for what you've done, in a different way usually. Yep. So don't do that.
That's asking for viruses.
It is.
Okay. Make sure you're clicking on the right download button. Okay.
Oh yeah. Oh, I hate that. And I mean, that could fall back on the ads. That's the most annoying thing in the world. And you have that a lot on Linux stuff. You're trying to download stuff and things like that.
SourceForge.
And they put it, the advertisement one, if you will, right there in the middle. And all of a sudden it's like, what program is this? I didn't ask for this program. Why do I have this program?
Yes. It is. Okay, so advertisers are very
annoying,
tricky.
Most annoying thing in the world.
They're tricksters. They are social engineers. They understand how a human brain thinks.
Exactly.
And so they're going to make it big. They're going to make it
flashy.
They're going to put it as close as they possibly can to where the original download button will be. If they can.
Sometimes the Linux stuff is really hard to find, so we were just suckers on this one.
So unfortunately, it's usually first.
Yeah.
So you've already clicked on it. All right, here's the link to download it. Here comes the button I'm supposed
Big
to click
letters,
on.
Download.
You click on it, you're taken to another website. No, that's not the download. You can help.
I had that thing with a family member the other day. I was just trying to get to where I can get to their computer to help them do something.
No, that's the wrong link.
And he'd say, "Well, I have to load this program first." And I'm like, "What program is that? I never heard of that program." No, don't do that. Don't do that. Delete that right now. Dump your trash
immediately.
So, oh gosh, that is so annoying. It just bugs me right now.
Just clickbait. Okay.
Yeah.
So speaking about,
and there's kind of a backside of that on some of those things too, and it's legitimate programs, but you didn't want that, So like,
I remember downloading something that had like 30 different other applications.
Right, and usually it's free versions of those applications, like a free version of McAfee.
Yeah,
and it'll have those all marked for you, and you have to remember to unmark that unmark that. So that's going back to that.
And those might be legitimate, but
I mean, they're
still,
legitimate programs, but still going to be like a trial version for a
Yeah.
little while and stuff like that. So those are
Still
a little bit
annoying.
too. But just pay attention when you're doing stuff. That's all.
All right, so open source applications. Okay, this is great, and from their official websites. Unfortunately, since it's open source, that also means open code.
Correct.
And people have taken advantage of this in the past. Usually, the community catches it very quickly because it is open source. So they're like, "All right, well, this version is not. Don't download that version." And usually, the ones that if you're using your official repositories, you don't have to worry about this because they're usually pretty good about checking their code, making sure it's still ethical or still, without viruses or whatever. But what I was trying to go through here is that on their websites, they usually offer an SH-256 or a checksum to ensure that the file you downloaded didn't come tampered or corrupt in the download process. We can talk about how to do that at a later time, or we can even put a little link in our description here to do that. But that's a little advantage just for this.
Yeah, the original program is the original program.
Right.
Yeah, it has all the right code in it.
That's going just an extra step further to make sure you know what you're downloading.
Okay, so every place you go now has to have passwords. What about passwords? What can we tell people to help them with that?
The biggest one, okay, do not save your passwords. This does not. This is not.
But it says to right there. It clicks right up there on your browser. It says save it.
Not save your passwords. Don't save it through the browser.
I can take that across multiple devices.
Don't save it across your browser. Do not save it in a Word file. Do not save it in an Excel file. Do not write it down on a piece of paper or a sticky note. I understand
if you log in, log out. Especially on public places.
Oh, man.
Because, you can go onto our computers and you'll see, like, here's your Google account. There's 3 different Google accounts there. People they can get to your Google account. Anything that's in there, they can get to. So
I can't tell you. I have actually gone to a public library.
So go ahead.
Where they have, the access for the computer. Right. You can go and, just like my dad said, you can see these. And I
understand that.
I'm kind enough to go ahead and clear that browsing history for them, so they don't have to worry about me in particular or anybody after me. But still, yeah,
it's a better idea to write it on a Post-it note and put it right there on your screen.
Don't do that either. Don't do that either. Oh my gosh, do not. I could go on and on about passwords.
Is that the IT nightmare right there? It's like, okay, we're making a password or everything like that. And of course, in the back end, we have to do all the stuff to make sure we're doing passwords. And, and then someone writes it right there on the screen, have right there on a piece of Post-it note. And you look at them and you're thinking, why?
Yeah.
I might as well just make it where they can automatically get in because, you're not doing anything. Like people wouldn't look on that screen and say, oh, the password is bitty bob bob bob.
Believe it or not, there are thieves out there that are not looking for valuables.
Yeah.
Sometimes they have a way of accessing your house without you knowing it. They'll go in and grab that kind of data. They're just like a fisher. They're just looking for that data because then they have a bigger fish than, the $20 that was on the counter. Anyway, I'm not trying to scare you guys, okay? Yeah. I'm not trying to worry you guys to the point where my password is insecure. No, there are secure ways of storing passwords,
right?
Okay? Through your browser is not the best way.
No.
Through a Word file, through a text file, through Excel, these are not acceptable methods.
If you have an encrypted way, maybe, but it's still a file on there that if they could figure out what the encrypted program is. But I want to say, and I know this is annoying, but there are now where you have a what do they call it, like a 2-way authorization type thing. And so that means they're going to either email you or text you the code that you need. So not only are you putting in a username and password, but they're going to notify you on your stuff to make sure it's you. And
so this is yes, as my dad says, annoyance. I used to think that this was the most annoying thing in the world until I had one day where I never signed into one of these applications, and I'm getting a notice on my device that somewhere in India in India, of all places, is trying to access.
You don't remember when you traveled to India?
I have never been to India in my life. But anyway, okay, and I'm not saying that it's only India. I'm giving an explanation because that's what happened to me. It makes me feel much more comfortable to know that there is an extra stop preventing them from able to access that information. It gives me a chance because obviously they know that password. I can go and change that password. Now I'm back to a bit of safety. Okay. All right. We do know there are a lot of passwords, a lot of accounts, and the best way to make sure that you are the most secure is a different password for every account. And not just different by I add a number to the end or I change the number at the end. No. Completely different password. That means, James, I have to remember 30 passwords for my work. I have to remember 30 passwords for my work. It is the most annoying thing. I get that. There are applications out there that are extremely encrypted called password managers.
Yeah.
Be careful which one you choose.
Right.
Because there are some that are out there that are not legitimate. They are simply there to grab your things.
Information. Yeah.
Okay. There are also ones out there that use server synchronization. What that means is usually on their servers, they'll store your passwords and be able to transfer it to another instance of their application. So say LastPass is one of the ones that I think about frequently.
Yeah.
LastPass will allow you to install it on as a browser extension on Chrome on this device. You go to the other device, you can install it as an extension there, and they're both synchronized across. Convenient, yes, absolutely. Their servers get compromised at any point. All your passwords are now whoever compromised it's property.
Correct.
We don't want that. Offline ones, which means they're only locally installed on your device, are going to be the most secure way.
Right.
Protecting that behind as big password as you possibly can remember, as annoying as it is to type it out, is going to protect it even more. The longer the password is, along with the more variations, and I mean a capital, a lowercase, the more variations that you can include in a password, the better. What I'm talking about is lowercase characters, uppercase characters, symbols, and numbers.
Correct. And of course, a lot of them will tell you what they need.
Yeah.
You know.
And the length. Why is this important, James? Because of brute force tactics.
Yeah.
Brute force is where they're trying every single possible combination in the history of combinations. The longer your password is, the longer it's going to take that particular tactic to break it.
Yeah. Now, on the ones where you're doing like the two-factor authorization or two-factor authentication,
it's not going to matter.
But it does help because it's coming back to a personal thing of yours. And there's another one that's like I guess you call them passkeys. That's what it's called. Like when you get the USBs, a physical USB, it's on you that you're going to use, and that's going to be your second factor.
Until you lose it.
Yeah, until you lose it. And then anyway, so those are ways to do it. You can use, like you said, program Bitwarden would be one. A Bitwarden's a free password thing, but you can buy it. I suggest buy it. It's $10 a year. That's not bad at all.
Yeah.
Again, clear your histories, clear your clipboard, but and that's helpful. But again, you have a password for your password keepers. So it's do your best to what we're trying to get at. You have to get beyond password 123.
That's
you have to get beyond that.
That is a compromised password, and it is one of the first ones that a lot of hackers will try. There are several others out there. Welcome 123.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, is another one of those. Your name 123 is not safe either. Your cat's name might be a little bit safer, but it's still not safe if somebody knows you.
Yeah. I mean, I know there's some people you can put systems in place that might work as long as it's a variable system. Maybe even on the keyboards, you have a certain pattern, as long as you're not using the same pattern from all the stuff. And as long as you're changing them, frequently.
Change them once a year at the very least.
Yeah.
If you have a 10-digit password.
I mean, I hate that day. I hate that day when it forces you to change your password because now I got to remember your password.
Like it either.
But it's necessary in today's world because people aren't there to look for your health nowadays. They're looking there
Yeah.
to get
To get
from you,
ahead
get
by,
ahead, hack you, whatever.
yeah.
And it's just, I hate to say it, that's where we are now. I mean,
So a 10-digit password using all the things that I mentioned before
yeah,
will take over a year to crack. So if you're changing it yearly and keeping it 10 digits long, that means they have to start over.
yeah.
So,
What about getting beyond passwords now? What about VPNs?
oh man, I could go on for hours about passwords, but yes, let's move on. So, encrypting your network. Okay, so we talked about public Wi-Fi's not being all that secure. We talked about firewalls. There's another layer of protection you can utilize called a virtual private network. Okay, this helps keep your internet traffic even more secure from people that are looking at it, because it's at that point in an encrypted tunnel, like we're talking about the HTTPS before, but it's even an extra layer beyond that. So you could think of like a bundled wire of cords. The cords that are the metal are actually the data that's being transferred, and all the thickness beyond that is protecting that. This VPN is just an extra layer on the outside protecting that information from being able to be retrieved or rerouted. Okay. I suggest if you are going to use a VPN, try to look for one that is a non-logging VPN. What that means is that they're not going to log your internet history at all. It's not to say that we're trying to protect you from
Right.
hiding your history from other people, but we are trying to say that means that their standard of protection is higher. They are more privacy centric than others. Okay, it's not to say that other ones out there aren't legitimate and won't help you, because they will, and their prices vary. I'm going to say you're not going to find very many free options out there that
For
are going
VPNs, no.
that are going to be
And you don't want them if they
yeah.
were, because
Yeah.
that's kind of fishy that because it requires equipment to do that, which equipment costs money.
Yes.
And people. So why is this free? Well, they might be, it's not the same idea of the Linux stuff where they're trying to make things better. It's more like, hey, we're trying to get information from people.
Right.
Yeah.
So, again, that's just an added thing. It's not even required necessarily, but it is an idea. Especially if you are going to frequent public Wi-Fi's, VPN might be worth your while as well, because it adds some thing. We did mention firewall. Keep your firewall up, okay? Again, this is usually local to your device, local to your phone, or local to your network, depending on where the firewall is at. Okay, keep those.
And that's
up.
for people attacking you,
Right.
So I, and a lot of this stuff falls under phishing or phishing and that type of stuff when they, different names for it. But the idea is people are disguising themselves as a trustworthy source trying to get information for you. So, always approach it with caution to start with. I mean, that'd be the best.
Don't put on the cone hats, guys.
Yeah, no, we're not.
There's not that
That's not what we're
much.
talking about here. We're talking more about the fact that there are people out there trying to do it, and it always worries me because there are people that aren't really savvy to this, and especially even people just get on the computer and thinking everything's secure and fine, and not even thinking that this person's trying to scam them.
Yeah.
And there's so many out there. Be careful with who you meet online. This is getting beyond your security and stuff like that. Needless to say, not everybody who you meet online or who they claim to be. Okay, that's just common sense. Don't do that. Be careful what you post, whether it's Facebook or blogs or anything like that, because you may be mad at this person. You may, be excited about something. You're going to put pictures out there and stuff. Keep in mind, other people can get to that. It could be your current employees, your future employees, your future relationships, spouses or girlfriends or boyfriends in the future might be able to still get to some of these posts you have now. Don't put things out there that compromise you.
Here's another adding to that. So not just posting, but just anything that you put out on the internet, once it's out there,
it's theirs.
It's there. It doesn't matter if you delete it. It is still there in the interwebs somewhere.
Yeah.
And I might have had something up there for a minute. That does not mean that somebody else who saw it didn't take a screenshot, didn't take a copy of it, didn't take a backup of it. It's there.
And I mean, that's even going one step farther, you have cameras that you're using now on your phones and on your internet. Yeah, we're blocking it now. Guys, if you have stuff that you're doing in front of that camera, those other people can be recording that, and they can use that against you later on.
Yep.
I mean, be careful.
Yeah. So with that, you can get privacy covers. They're
Correct.
very inexpensive, but it's a physical blocking of your device. So even if,
But most of these people that are going to use this stuff against you, you agreed to open up that whatever it is. So I'm just saying, the things are still there. Those pictures are still there. The words you put out there are still there. So, I mean, use common sense. Don't.
Oh man, let's put a overall arcing thing here.
Yeah.
For all of this, a lot of it relates to common sense.
Yeah.
It really does. Not sharing your passwords. Well, obviously, if you don't share your passwords, you don't have to worry about them, right?
Yeah.
So common sense is something that we should always do. Okay. We already spoke about downloads earlier.
Yeah.
So I believe that this is pretty encompassing. There's a lot of other things that we could do to help keep ourselves safe. Thinking the same way, keeping your kids safe. It's the same idea. Be as common sense as you possibly can. Limit what you can and what you can't educate about.
Well, that brings us up to the verse of the week. In the verse of the week, I decided to pick Psalms 59 or Psalm 59:17. To you, O my strength, I will sing praises, for God is my defense, my God of mercy. And this is David writing, for when Saul was chasing him and trying to kill him. And David is still looking to God for his defense because he's your protection.
Yes.
And just talking about security here, God is our security. And keep looking to him for the security that you need in your life because, there's going to be another time when all this stuff that we're talking about, all this world is going to end. And God will still be there. So please look to him for your strength and your defense. What about, we have another Linux to review, right?
We do.
So are we going to spin our wheel and see what Linux comes up?
Yep. Hey!
No bankrupt. No bankrupt. No.
Don't bankrupt us. Please don't bankrupt us.
All right. And it stops on
Bazite or Bazite. I don't know how you pronounce it. I'm sorry.
So Bazite, it's a gaming type Linux, right? Or maybe like a Steam OS type, not really a clone because that's not what we call it, but something that can work the same as Steam OS.
So it claims itself as being related. Built towards gamers or for gamers by gamers kind of thing.
Right.
It's based off Fedora and it runs on their atomic version of Fedora called Silverblue. This one in particular is actually running off of Universal Blue, which is again just a fork of Silverblue.
So I'm glad we're not doing another Ubuntu, and nothing wrong with Ubuntu. I'm just saying, Ubuntu after Ubuntu after Ubuntu clones or forks. It does get a little bit old, so it's kind of fun to have a different installation procedure, different.
Yep.
Anyway, so we'll look at that and see how it works, and try to give you guys some information next time we record. All right. In closing, remember: love God, love your neighbor, keep your mind sharp, and also your computer with Linux and open source.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Take care, guys.